welcome. What's going on? We're both. This is the first time, Craig, in the history of the show. If you say hello, Craig.
Oh, hello, Craig.
If you look at Craig and I, we are wearing the same sort of attire for the first time in the history of our show, and I'm damn proud of it. And, of course, the word damn is right there, too, so it fits. Craig Lyons, follow him at Craig Lyons. Follow me, Dan, at DanLaw83. Let's get right down to it. So, because people don't know that the first, before we got on the air, we spoke about Philly sports for about 25 minutes. Hey, you two are matching. We are.
Yeah,
Didn't
we
even
are.
plan it that way.
Totally organic.
Actually, you know what? I have two of these. I might give you this one.
Okay. Thank you.
I have the Hextall one. This is a no name, but it's still
It still works.
It's vintage. It was sold at the time.
There you go.
So whenever I can breathe the same air as you without killing people around us, I'll bring it to you.
Thank you.
So I was thinking about what we should talk about this week, and we will be talking about the Ugandan giant Kamala in a second. But I'll start the conversation like this, Craig. I haven't been able to watch wrestling the last 2 weeks again.
Why is that?
I'm tired of being a fan.
Well, see, there's not much to be a fan of this current crop of professional wrestling.
You know, I'm not even going to argue with you because maybe it's the fatigue of being at home. Maybe it's the fatigue of all the stuff that happened with indie wrestling and everything in between. But I finally hit that moment last week when AEW, I saw a friend, a person I consider, we're not best friends, but she's a really good person and a really good friend the last 3 years because of Primetime Red, Polygon Princess, get into a discussion. It was a discussion on her end, not so much the other end. That I'm not going to go into the details, neither here nor there. I watched a conversation unfold about AEW Heels. And for those who don't know, AEW Heels isn't an app. I don't know what the hell it is. It's a club that, behind the guise of good intentions, it basically created a safe space for female wrestling fans.
All
There
three
would
of
be
them.
giveaways, different kind of things, different perks, all kinds of stuff. It's hard to watch playoff hockey and do this show. All kinds of stuff. As an AEW female wrestling fan, the only problem is in the middle of the pandemic, they were like, "Oh, you got to play. You want to be part of this club and be included and be in the safe space? You got to pay $50."
Yeah, $50 a year.
$50 a year. All right,
but still,
$50 a year. Fair enough.
Yeah, but still something per month that, on top of all other bills you may have to pay. And, again, because of the huge jobless rate we are right now and unemployment being what it is, asking fans, okay, and you're talking female AEW fans, and I made a joke, all three of them exist, but you're asking them to pay. So I think it's a huge ask.
That is the exact words I was going to use. That is a huge ask.
You're giving away so much for free on nationwide every Wednesday and on your YouTube channel. Why is this all of a sudden for the female AEW fans? Not that there's anything wrong with that demographic or nothing wrong with catering to that demographic, but why does that have to generate a revenue stream?
Well, it's very funny you mention that, Craig, because this is exactly where I was going to go with it. My question is, and this is from, obviously, no, surprise, two dudes talking about it. I asked around. Everybody was unavailable this week, so I figured, well, we're going to talk about it anyway. I try to keep it mixed when it's not, just about our normal stuff, but what the hell, here we are. What have you done for me lately? Kind of thing. I sat back. I didn't comment about it because, quite frankly, it wasn't about me. The Heels is not for me. Obviously not geared towards me. So I sat back and watched the people that I liked and trusted comment about it on how it made them feel. And it aligned with how I felt about it. Like, I'm going to get a lot of heat for this. I don't care. Direct all your hate mail to @DanLaw83 because I'm going to mute every single one of them. I don't care. Which gets back into the other part of the discussion later. What has AEW done that's different from the WWF? Nothing. In fact, as far as their women's division, not as good. Just not. That's not a lock on the talent at all. The booking. AEW started their company as a, correct me if I'm wrong again, Craig, I've said that 3 times off air. I'm going to say it one time on air. AEW had this thing about how we're going to be different. We're going to do this differently. We're not going to be like everything else on TV. You're like everything else on TV. Which a lot of people called, including that one guy we won't mention because we are talking about females right now. Well, let me phrase that. We're talking about non-white males. Well, non-white males. We know how dominant that is. Who called it when they got the TV deal, like, they're going to have to conform to the TV. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter at all what they say. If TV doesn't want it, that's not what's going to happen. It looks like they're right. Look at that. A guy who does perfectly. Ask your trans person what he does is done differently, and maybe this isn't for you. Well, tell me. I still think they've done a disservice for a person of color, trans people of color, and queer and women in general.
You have Nyla Rose, who's your AEW Women's Champion. It should be your AEW Women's Champion. And even if you want to use her being trans as your storyline, perfect, because now you have your heel, your monster heel, as your AEW Women's Champion. And then you can have the built-in controversy. Well, she used to be a man, so that's not fair. Well, so what? This is our women's division. So you already have that built in if you want to go that way. But even if you don't, okay, she's a woman. We're not even going to call attention to her past. Why is she not your dominant heel champion? Why is she sitting in the stands with no makeup on and the camera goes over to her? It's like, that's your main event. Should be your main event star. Why is she in the? When was the last time you watched a WCW Saturday Night and there's Dusty Rhodes in the crowd, even though he's wrestling later on, he's your top star in the company, but he's in the crowd along with everyone else, or he's not on the show. I don't get it. AEW is doing a disservice because for not being inclusive, and like you said, it's not the talent's fault. The best women's wrestlers they have on that in that whole company broke her leg because of stupid work, because of horrible work done by the women in there that don't know what the hell they're doing. And she could be the best heel on best heel woman on either show, arguably.
Here's where I want to disagree and correct you. We're not using their queerness or their transness as part of a storyline. That's 1996, that's 1990s wrestling. I get what you mean.
Yeah.
That's done. We're past that. It's not the crux of the issue. It should never be the crux of
But
the
the only reason I brought it up, Dan, because it's AEW, and I wouldn't put it past them to use that if they were going to establish themselves as a national wrestling organization that's different from the WWE. Why not go back 30 years in time and use that? Not saying that they should, but that's why I didn't put it past them. But your point is a good one. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm reading off comments, the exact comments I wanted in the comments. Sonny Kiss and Nyla Rose aren't effing. I almost cursed. Aren't effing Goldust playing the queer panic angle. They are putting these people over. I don't think they're putting them over enough.
No,
that's my problem. That Nyla Rose should have been on top of that company.
Yes,
period.
She should still be on top of this company. Yes,
over everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm real tired of hearing ability and she's not a good wrestler as a comment. Determine what enough is. No, I don't get to determine what enough is. This is my opinion. Opinion.
That's why it's
I am
wrong.
not the end all be all of wrestling. I know that. What was I saying? I'm really tired of people using the excuse of ability and in-ring talent when the past champions have been the past champions.
Yes.
Just
I, I I would, and I would have you. First of all, Nyla Rose is should be your dominant, awesome Kong like champion, and definitely shouldn't be selling or losing to a 95-year-old, 95-pound,
95-year-old.
90. Well, 90. She weighs the same as a 95-year-old. Your Japanese teenage girl champion should not be. That's the only thing that gets me.
I guess my point is as far as the women's division, other than Nyla Rose getting TV time, they're doing the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Bare minimum is not good enough for me. I wanted something different, and I'm not getting anything different. Right now, Impact and WWE's women's division is better, minus some of the crappy storyline.
Obviously.
I've opted out of wrestling for years. I call it wrestling, yeah, because of its toxic as F culture. It's a no-brainer as to what I will watch in hours. What do you watch on TV right now? Do you have a set schedule, Purple Flavor Trash, or do you just say, well, I guess I'll watch this week? I'm generally curious. Sox comment, in my opinion, AEW is not delivering what they said they would be as a company to an extent. I agree.
As do I.
That's just me.
Yeah, again, their best wrestler they have, Britt Baker, is sidelined because of carelessness, but she's.
You see, I said that at the beginning, Purple. They have her on TV, which is more than I could say about any other company. They period. They won me over right there, and then they've done nothing with her. So I don't. Other people, there are zero trans people on other promotions I see visibly. No, there's not. There's zero. And unless you're in the indies, which Paris is Bumping's coming out soon, and that was no pun intended. I can't wait for that show because that's going to open a lot of eyes. The other queer people as visible as I do on AEW, they're not visible enough to me because I keep saying the same stuff every week, and it's not what I expected or wanted. Or I think AEW sucks. I think I think they're pardon the expression, I think they're pussyfooting around it. Women's division is getting little to no spotlight. I also think, and this is just my opinion again, I am not the end-all be-all. This is just how I feel. Craig, I think the YouTube thing is stupid too. Put it on the show. Put that other stuff on the YouTube matches.
Or at least show, instead of putting a tracker on the bottom of what we missed in eight, just show the highlights or show these people. I mean, it's like Tully Blanchard gets more camera time on YouTube than he does on a national show. And Tully Blanchard needs to be on television every week talking. And if you just as much Arn Anderson, and I know I'm saying this as Tag Team Appreciation week is going on right now on AEW, but that's definitely something that needs to be addressed. And I've made it clear they were misusing their talent, and the talent that they do have on there is bad. I mean, why do we have? Why was there a fight last week, a 5-minute segment with MJF, but we got 20 minutes of Joey Janela in a match? That should never happen under any circumstances.
No comment.
Yeah, but I mean that's just but that's my point of how you have people, and even something like Sonny Kiss, who I'm not knocking, but you see a guy like Cody Rhodes, your number one guy, bumping for him left and right. I don't know it's being a night, but now you're putting Sonny Kiss on the same level as your top guy, and they do that, and that seems like every AEW match they have to show off, everyone getting an offense in. But if you want wrestling to work, I mean, we're going to see a 20-minute match between Ric Flair and George South. I mean, that we want that. We're going to see what Dusty Rhodes wrestling Ranger Ross, and they go to commercial break because because the match is so competitive that we have to go to commercial. Come on.
Purple Flavored Trash, can you reply to this and tell me if you are I know you're happier with AEW. Are you satisfied with what they've done so far? Am I overreacting? If I'm overreacting, here we go. I understand my threshold is different because as a trans person of color, my attachment to the representation of, oh man, big words, my eyes, of people who share those identities is important, especially when for major promotions there is zero. It's quite literally 100% more than other major promotions. Whether or not that's enough is a shrug. I understand your point of view. Thank
I
you,
understand. Yeah,
Leave a Six. Yes, I am a nerd. Very good.
as are we. As are we.
Yes, as always. That's what that is the answer I'm looking for. But see, here we are. You and I are having a discussion. We're having a discussion with Purple Flavor Trash. We're having a discussion with Aaron, Glow Socks. Or, by the way, he's streaming now, and you should go follow him.
Yes.
But we're having a conversation about it.
Mm-hmm.
You and I can have a conversation on the basis that, you know, I might not be correct about it, and neither might you be.
Yes.
For instance, we just talked about it. Purple Flavor Trash is happy. Who the F am I? To take away from that or insult something they like that much?
Yeah.
Nobody. Not my place. And I concede and accept that. I personally, in my opinion, want to see AEW do a little more. We'll see what happens.
Yes.
It was a good start. It is a good start. And it's miles away from WWE as far as representation. Many miles, which you don't have to try hard because WWE has.
Yeah, I still don't see them as being miles apart because they still do the same hokey.
Not even an Indian, understand. I'm interested in
garbage.
Yeah, no, you're allowed to feel that way. Here's the thing: I'm not even an AEW stan. I'm interested in the talent more than the promotion, but it is the promotion where it is happening. There you go, man.
Okay.
The answer I was looking for. Straight up, the answer I was looking for. I want people to come on here and challenge me and have a discussion, that's the thing, though. They have been a smoke screen for a while now. Oh, this is Socks now. This thing, though, they've been a smoke screen for a while now, showing off a certain product, not delivering where they originally told, but what do I know? LOL. Everybody be nice. We're discussing here. No sarcasm. Be nice, everybody. I mean, Sonny just got a piece of Cody. I think it was 3 weeks. Yeah.
Shouldn't happen.
Hey, watch it, Aaron. Put your money where your mouth is, pal. I can't read that over the air, but here's my thing. We're in here discussing this and chatting about it. Where this is where I'm. Oh, I know you are. I know you. I know you are, Aaron. And his storyline with Janela is super effing contagious. It gets a pop. Oh, I will, Daddy Dan. Well, Craig, if you can see the conversation in this room right now, I'll tell you what.
Well, you're a lucky man, Dan.
But I am thank you. More than you know, sir. The point I was coming back around on is divisiveness.
Yeah.
You're trying to get me to blush. Past that. I love you both. You guys are cool. We're having a conversation about it. You both are cool. Everybody in the chat room has been real cool, except for the nerd person. I don't know where they went, but calls them like I sees them. So, divisiveness. I have gone back to watching Zero Wrestling.
Good.
Like I said at the top of the hour. Top of the hour. What am I, Tony? Top of the show. You're not allowed to and eventually I'll start watching it again because I'm just going to stop tweeting about it and posting about it, which is part of the problem. Just go back to enjoying what I like and not sharing my thoughts about it because you're not allowed to do that. If this was Twitter, Purple Flavor Trash would not be allowed to feel that way. They'd be wrong. If Socks was on Twitter right now, and he will be soon, and God help everybody on Twitter when he does. I think he called Devin Nunes a cuck, and he got paid for it. I think that's what happened. you're not allowed to have an opinion about wrestling anymore. I think the TNT Championship is an ugly belt.
It is.
And then they finished it. It's still fugly. I hate that belt. That woman's title is terrible. That's just my opinion. But I can't say anything because it's AEW. Likewise, it's WWE. Anybody who has a valid argument about their storylines, and let's face it, it's almost 90% garbage on TV right now in WWE.
Mm-hmm.
You are the worst person in the world, and you're not allowed to think that way. I'm so tired of talking about wrestling with anybody but you and the friends that come into the chat and I talk to on Twitter privately, because you can't have a conversation publicly because you get yelled at and get called names and it turns into a big cluster F. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I was back into wrestling after I took 3 weeks off after the primetime implosion.
Uh-huh.
Got back into it again and actually watched less WWE that week. Those 2 weeks. I watched more AEW, Impact, and well, that was it because MLW was showing like stuff from the vaults, which is fun, but nothing live. I know Ring of Honor is going back into production, I think, next week. Next week.
Great.
And I know fans are in AEW tonight, believe it or not. There are fans in the building.
I did not know that. Wow. Okay.
Quite a handful of them, too. And I'm like, okay. But Twitter's become just, and it's because everybody can't go anywhere, and there's a pandemic, and there's no conversation anymore. It's just, sorry, I get paid for features. What are you sorry for? You get paid for I'm not supposed to say that out loud. I can't do. I'm ADD. I can't do two at the same time. Two conversations at the same time. We'll have that conversation later. So yeah, I don't know, Craig. How do you feel about you? Stay off the tweety machine when it comes to wrestling for the most part.
I do stay off the fire breathing Twitter machine when it comes to wrestling, and in both companies. Only because and I I know what you're saying facetiously. You can't say anything. I never comment on wrestling. Probably the only site I do visit is the old time wrestling or Bill Apter site, because he's got old magazines and old interviews, and somebody says, where were these belts from? And I can just chime in and say, oh, these are from the Southern Tag Team Champions from 1974 or something like that. Or correct, or somebody goes, I never saw this before, and I say, well, this is from the one, like the picture of Jimmy Hart at the Road Warriors. Jimmy Hart managed the Road Warriors one time in 1984 when they came to Memphis, when they were on there. This is back when they were the national tag team champions in Georgia, but we're going to every single territory in the United States.
Right.
And Jimmy Hart managed them one night in Memphis, and so with Jimmy Hart and the Road Warriors. Oh my God! I was like, yeah. But as far as the current product, no, I don't comment on it because there's nothing to comment on. I think it's ridiculous. AEW has great talent, but they have lousy booking. They give way too much emphasis and attention to the wrong people at the wrong time. I'm glad they went back to Matt Hardy being Matt Hardy and not 3,000-year-old Matt Hardy with the drones and he gets drowned in a pool and comes back up as someone else and that kind of thing. That sitcom hokey stuff. MJF should be on TV every single week. They have the gift of the single best tag team on earth given to you, and with a built-in feud with the Young Bucks, and you blow it. You have them face the Young. Then the very next week they're teaming with them in an 8-man team. You remember when the original Midnight Express attacked Jim Cornette's Midnight Express? And remember the week after that they teamed up together in an 8-man team against the Road Warriors and the Powers of Pain? No, because it didn't happen. Because that's not how you build a feud between the two teams that you want to feud with. You don't team them up. And they've already done it twice. So AEW's direction is messed up. Kind of like what we were talking about before we went on the air with a local basketball team. Where's the leadership? Where's one person in charge? There isn't that in AEW. I mean, there's the one guy that signs the checks, but there's not one Bill Watts, Dusty Rhodes type person that this person is in charge. This person says what goes. In AEW, got, Chris Jericho's got his input, Cody has his input, and Kenny Omega has his input, and it's one guy, and it shows because of the lackluster direction that they have, and the matches against jobbers against your lower card tag teams are getting as much time as your top level tag team. And what I love about AEW, because they have so many great tag teams, but everyone doesn't deserve to have the, one. It's like one week the Ding Dongs are the opening match, and the next week they're the main event against Chris Jericho's team, the heel team. It's like, how does that work? And there's no direction. And WWE is just WWE. It's
sad that we've come to this. I'll say it again. I'll say it on the show. The 2 weeks that I was watching as much wrestling as possible, Impact was the best show both weeks.
Okay.
And that's with me skipping the domestic abusers. One of them, who's been ducking me for years, because he's a coward. Doesn't know who I am. I know who he is, though.
I know who you are.
Before we get to Wrestling Historian, sir.
Yeah.
We lost another legend this week.
We did. 70 years. He graced us with his presence, and maybe the beneficiary of maybe the greatest gimmick ever, because he got more than 30 years out of it.
Yes, he did.
We talked about The Undertaker in our last show on HIAC Talk Radio, and it obviously, given that The Undertaker was the greatest gimmick that the WWE ever created, but the greatest wrestling gimmick ever created, would have to go with James Sugar Bear Harris, who, as Sugar Bear Harris, had a very limited career and very little success. He had some regional success in the South as James Sugar Bear Harris, and he started wrestling and he was in his 20s, and he in for the Roy Lee Welch category, and he won some tag team title. He went over to England and won a championship over there, and it's like, well, obviously he can wrestle. No, because this was a 6'6" American, so people in England just catered to that. And even though he was 6'6" and an anomaly, even at 6'6", 6'7", legit 300-pound man, he had not a speck of athletic talent, absolutely no mobility, and to put it in wrestling terminology, his work was the drizzling S. And so he couldn't get booked throughout, the South instead of the major arenas in the South. He got in Continental and in Roy Lee Welch's Mid America federation that was small. But he went to he was friends with, I think, Buddy Wayne, who was wrestling in Memphis for Jerry Lawler, and he went there before the matches, and Jerry Lawler saw this huge 6'7", enormous 340-pound black man, nicest guy in the world. And that's what we'll hear about, what you did hear about James Harris since his passing, to everyone who knew him. Nicest guy in the world. Great guy. That's what Jerry Lawler said the first time he met him. Great guy. He just couldn't work. So they came up with the idea, who? And the thing is, Dan, in the history of professional wrestling, when has there ever been, let's make a character about someone who doesn't know how to wrestle, who can't wrestle? James Harris.
Goldberg. Only Goldberg was not as good as a gimmick. I was kidding.
Yeah.
It was sarcasm.
But James Harris, being a natural, in a fight, could knock you out with one punch. But he couldn't throw a working punch to save his life. So, and that's the thing about what people miss about the art of wrestling. Anyone can punch, but wrestling, you have to learn how to throw a punch. He didn't know how to do that. So Jerry Lawler came up with the idea to turn him into something else. So James Sugar Bear Harris, through the mind of Jerry Lawler, came up with the which now would be incredibly racially insensitive storyline of this Ugandan giant, and that he even had the idea of bringing James J. Dillon, who was not who was not known in Memphis, who was a Florida manager, and that James J. Dillon was on safari in Africa when this giant Goliath of a man stopped his safari tour and slayed a beast or stopped a jeep with his hands. And James J.J. Dillon, again in the racially insensitive storyline that would not fly today, tamed this wild beast and brought him back to America. Later on, the gimmick was the storyline gimmick was altered that he was the bodyguard of dictator Idi Amin before he was brought to the United States. But he was brought in to Memphis.
Really?
Yes. Later on, the storyline of Kamala was that he was dictator Idi Amin's bodyguard. But anyway, for his first match in Memphis, Jerry Lawler told James Harris before the bout, "You don't know how to. You're James Harris. You don't know how to wrestle legitimately, but now you're Kamala, so you never wrestle. You don't know how to wrestle. So chops, slaps, okay, slams, kicks, everything, all like that." And Jerry Lawler, still Hall of Famer because he could sell his ass off, and that's exactly what he did. And all the paint you see on Kamala, and every paint job every time you saw him in Memphis, that was all done by Jerry Lawler before the match. Jerry Lawler, professional artist, went to the University of Memphis on an art scholarship. So he would paint up Kamala before every match, the face and the moon and the stars on his chest and belly. So his first match, Jerry Lawler selling like mad for this Ugandan giant who was wreaking havoc, and he got blood and everything like that. And Lawler beat him by disqualification. And the next week, Kamala beat Bobby Fulton. And then he beat Tommy Rogers. And then he beat Steve Kern. And then he beat Stan Lane. And then he beat Bobby Eaton. And then he went to Jerry Lawler and pinned him clean for the Southern Heavyweight Championship. And there's no gimmicks. There was no outside interference. Just squashed. Just like that. And that was in June. And Lawler regained it in August. And after that, because once you beat the Giant, prove that he can be beaten, you got to move on. And that's what he did. And from then, Kamala went to the Mid-South because he had just from his reputation in Memphis. And the reputation came, Dan, from a single video. This is the beginning of the 80s where videos were key. They shot this video of Kamala, 6'7", 340 pounds, from the wilds of Africa. Kamala. And the camera going from his feet all the way up to the top of his head. They got dry ice, and it made it look like Kamala, they found him in the jungle. That video was shot in Jerry Jarrett's backyard in Hendersonville, Tennessee. But that video followed Kamala every territory he went. That's the video that they showed. When he went to Mid-South, they showed that. When he went to Florida, they showed that. When he went to World Class, they showed it. When he went to the AWA, and by this time the video is 6 years old, but Kamala from Uganda. And that was all shot with dry ice in Jerry Jarrett's backyard that made it look like he was roaming the jungle and in his natural habitat. And that's where he was. But that was the magic of video and the image of Kamala that follows him everywhere. From Memphis, he went to Mid-South under Bill Watts' tutelage. And I don't know, and again, not to be racially insensitive, but Bill Watts, with a big black man, he always turned into money. JYD, Ernie Ladd, Kamala. You give Bill Watts, a big black man, he's gonna get a whole lot of money out of him.
I mean, you're black. I don't think you can apologize for being racially insensitive like that.
No,
I mean,
but I
come
don't know
on.
what it is with Bill Watts though. When he had it like thrown in
He's a
glass,
racist. That's what it is.
all I, all
I
I
mean,
tell
I'll say it.
if Bill Watts wants to be racist to me and get me that kind of money, yeah, then that. But Bill Watts, when he got after he went from Memphis to Mid South, and he again just like he was put right away with the big guys, right away with Junkyard Dog, right away with Andre the Giant. He slammed Andre the Giant on Mid South TV, okay, during a Saturday afternoon show
Before Hulk Schmuck.
before Hulk Hogan did it. Okay, actually not. It was after Hulk Hogan, but before WrestleMania, Hulk Hogan.
That's what I meant, yes.
Okay, yes, but
Of course, you know.
but that was the first. But Dan, that was the first body slam by Andre the Giant on free TV. Okay, that was during a Saturday afternoon Mid South television show. He slammed Andre, and then he faced Andre at the Superdome later that year. That was in '84. From there, he went to World Class, pinned the Von Erich again right away. Pinned Kerry Von Erich, and it was against all three Von Erich brothers. Wrestled at the Parade of Champions in Texas Stadium. And from there to the AWA, and then he went to the WWF for a short while on Andre the Giant's recommendation that they bring him to the WWF to defeat Hulk Hogan. And his first time in the WWF was a short one. He came in and it did some house show matches and beat guys like Sal Balomo, Chief J Strongbow, some of the stalwarts from the old WWF, and wrestled Hogan. And again, Andre in a cage match in the WWF. But then he became one of the last free agents in the 80s, back when all three major corporations were not cooperating with each other. Within a span of 1 year, Kamala went from main eventing with Hulk Hogan in the late '84 to going against Sergeant Slaughter in the AWA in April of '85. And then he wrestled Magnum TA for the United States Championship at the first Great American Bash in summer of '85. And he's in all three federations without a contract in any one of them, but he was in main event matches in all three territories and in all three major federations in under a year. And when he went back to the WWF in late '86, that's when the big run came with Hogan, and the action figure and the major marketing went through, and he became a main event guy and feuded with Jake Roberts, feuded with Hogan, feuded with King Kong Bundy, of all people, and and by then he went to back to the AWA and went to lots of indies and could pretty much write his own ticket because of his gimmick that he had. Just Kamala being on the card, even if it was an indie card, meant something, and you were going, and people would pay to see, or people would want to see. When he went to the WCW in early 2000s, again, I mean with the late 90s, when Hogan was there, Hogan brought him back, and they had a match at a Clash of Champions once, Hogan versus Kamala, and he would continue to write his own ticket and wrestle in indies when he was done with the big two at this point, WCW and WWF. There was a story about when he wrestled the Undertaker in a one match, and Kamala's payoff was $13,000, and the Undertaker got $50,000. The Undertaker disputes that story, but there was a hierarchy that he wasn't happy with, so that was the last time he wrestled. And it's weird, Dan, that his last matches coincided with this week. His last match in the WWF took place 15 years ago this week. On August 11th, 2005, he wrestled Randy Orton on an edition of SmackDown.
Oh, hell.
Yeah. And and it was ruled a no contest because the Undertaker appeared on the big screen and distracted Randy Orton. I think that was leading up to their SummerSlam match. And Kamala's last match ever took place August 15th, 2010 at a JCW show. when he
You
teamed up
saying
with,
Juggalo Championship Wrestling?
I'm saying Juggalo Championship Wrestling, Kamala's last match, he teamed up with Weed Man to go up against the Haters. And that would be his last match ever as a pro. And it took place uh, 10 years ago this Saturday, August 15th, 2010, was his last match.
Wow.
Yeah, and his last match for the WWF was August 11th, 2005. The interesting things about Kamala, uh, from the time he started wrestling, when he was 24 years old, uh, his wife, Kamala, was married from 1974 to 2005. So for his entire
That
wrestling
doesn't happen
career,
in wrestling.
31 years
Not much.
married to the same woman.
Wow.
Yeah. Obviously, we know the story of Kamala's later life. He lost his left leg to diabetes.
I would say before all that, he was the first guy to. He was one of the first guys to kind of come out, other than superstar Billy Graham, and talk about all of the BS that happened backstage, politicking and otherwise, sexual favors, if you will, at the WWE. He was the first one, and he did it in songs, so he did it in the style that nobody else did.
James Harris says Kamala wrote over 100 songs. My personal favorite, it's available. I have it on VHS.
Oh, God.
I can't find it on YouTube anywhere. I guess it's up to me to put it on YouTube, but his rendition of Let's Make Love in a Rocking Chair is my favorite Kamala song of all time. Yes, Dan, it's on I have it on VHS.
Excuse me?
His Let's Make Love in a Rocking Chair.
All right.
Sung by Kamala, and the video is him in a suit with full Kamala makeup on in a recording studio saying, "Let's make love in a rocking chair."
No, thank you.
You have to see it to believe it. I know that's cliche, but it's a goddamn
No, I need
truth.
to see that.
But
The song I'm referring to, ladies and gentlemen, and otherwise, is Push. Is it called Push It and Pull It, or just Push It?
Probably bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff was WWE was exposed years ago. Nobody cared.
Yeah,
Nobody
but
cared. That's just Kamala.
What you said.
Way,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the way I'm to understand it, unfortunately, it was complications due to COVID-19 and his medical history.
Yeah, and his immune system was shot because he lost his right leg to diabetes in 2006, and would lose his left leg the following year. He contracted the coronavirus on August 6th, and because of his poor immune deficiency, succumbed to the disease earlier this week. When you said, Dan, he was one of the first people outside of superstar Billy Graham to talk about the company. That alone, I believe, is why he's not in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Probably.
Because why I always call the WWE Hall of Fame it's completely arbitrary. It's whether or not you get along with Vince. There's no real Hall of Fame. Because if there was, the people that should be in there, regardless of how personal feelings aside. It's the Coco Beware rule. If Coco Beware is in any Hall of Fame, but Ivan Koloff, King Kong Bundy, and Kamala are not, then it's not a real Hall of Fame.
Bundy's not in.
Nope.
It blew my mind here.
Yep. But Kamala isn't in the Hall of Fame. And
if only they were here to kiss Vince. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Listen, there's some things I'm glad people apologize for, because we got the Billy Graham DVD, we got the Jake DVD. This is for selfish reasons, but obviously not. We got the Bret Hart DVD, and that was a great DVD that finally came out that took a look at his whole career and had an interview with him.
Mm-hmm.
Very glad for that. Very glad we got the CM Punk one before he left. So I just have to say sorry, F you, Vince. But yeah, it was mentioned. Stadium Journey did a podcast on Best Sports Hall of Fames, and somebody commented, "Well, WWE has one, right?" And I broke the news to them that no, they don't.
No.
You mean, what do you mean they don't? They don't. There's no building. There's no garage.
Uh-huh.
There's nothing. There's nothing anywhere commemorating any of this. You get a plaque and a ring, and you get to talk incessantly, possibly under the influence of alcohol for a half hour or more, if you're Mr. T, 3 hours,
Yeah.
and that's it. There's
Yeah.
nothing else. There's nowhere to go.
Mm-mm.
Which I agree with you. If there's no building,
Yeah.
there's no
It's
point.
it's just an ego stroke. I get it. It's a way to recognize the contributions of wrestlers that have performed there in the past. But if you're doing it completely arbitrary for the people that you got along with, not the people that helped build your company, uh, if there is no, you can have a Bruno Sammartino who didn't get into the 2000s, your first champion of all time and your greatest champion, and he's not in your Hall of Fame. And even the guy that beat him, the only guy to ever beat him in Madison Square Garden, you don't have a Pedro Morales. You don't get a Pedro Morales without an Ivan Koloff. You don't have an 8-year reign ended without an Ivan Koloff. You don't have a Russian heel, and every Russian heel from the beginning of wrestling, you start with Ivan Koloff. And that means Nikita, that means Crusher Khrushchev, that means Boris Yukov, that means Nikolai Volkov, that means it starts with Ivan Koloff. But no, he's not in the Hall of Fame. Kamala James Harris had the single greatest gimmick in professional wrestling. A
Period.
gimmick, period. A gimmick made about a guy who doesn't know how to wrestle, and he took it and he did the Rick Rude route. Went to every single territory and main event it, and just got better and better. Maybe not a better wrestler, obviously, because he wasn't a wrestler to begin with. But you embody a character that sells out everywhere in every territory, even up to the biggest national wrestling organization in the world. Okay, you haven't changed one thing, and that proves because what works in Memphis is not always going to work in the WWF. What worked
This
in World
did.
Class isn't going to work in the WWF. What worked in the AWA isn't going to work. It did, and he never said a word.
You. It just occurred to me, Craig. You saying that. Literally, the only gimmick that I know of that was across the board, zero changes whatsoever. No name change, music change, maybe, barely. It was drums. Um, just occurred to me. That's the only one that's never changed.
Nope.
Wow. I
Yeah.
mean, the Kamala I got was like Legion of Doom Kamala at the end of
Yeah.
the WCW Hulk Hogan thing, but I still knew who Kamala was and what that meant. It was freaking Kamala.
Yeah. And it just again one name and it says it all. And when you saw him for real, or even if you saw him on TV, you never forgot him. And because he spanned generations, fathers knew him and sons knew him, and you didn't forget where you were when you first saw him. And he was a generational talent, and going on 30 years with one gimmick. Again, never said a word. Always had a handler, and whether it was uh, J.J. Dillon or Percy or Skandor Akbar, who had him for the most time, then King Curtis, or he was a wizard and was the WWF, and Fred Blassie had him. That infamous TNT segment when they had a live chicken on set and cut away and cut back, and he's got feathers all over his mouth. Uh, I took him to see. I took my dad to see a Spectrum show in '85, and he came out with loud African music, so loud. And we came in the ring with the spear and the head, and slapping his belly. My dad could not stop laughing. He thought this was the greatest thing, and he yelled, "Throw him a bone!" And yeah. So
Wow, your dad said that?
yes, my dad said that.
So, okay, as a black man looking back on it,
Hmm.
your opinions on that whole thing.
Again, it would not. The racially insensitive storyline would not work now. And the only reason it worked for 30 years because it had already had been established. But imagine right now, some white man who just said, "Yeah, I was on safari in Africa and I saw this big, 7 foot, 300 pound, and I tamed him and I brought him back to the country to wreak havoc on everyone else. And I'm going to give him a spear and I'm going to give him a little ring through his nose and he's not going to speak." And yeah, so
Ooh, man.
exactly. So like Mr. Wrestling too, I mentioned before, the right time and the right temperament and the right gimmick, and it worked. It couldn't work in any other time. Uh, and Kamala, James Harris, no one else could do that but him. Sugar Bear Harris was never going to be a wrestling star ever. A 6'7", legit 310-pound man that looked like that, who you would think had it written all over. I mean, what's wrong with him? He could be another Ernie Ladd. He could have been another one-man gang. No, he was horrible. He was just bad. But Jerry Lawler saw something, and he always the idea, man. This is the man that came up with the Fabulous Ones,
Yeah.
and that gave birth to the Rock and Roll Express, which who has just was just on TNT right now. Another gimmick that has longevity, but the mind of Jerry Lawler is a man. He's a visionary, and he looked at James Sugar Bear Harris and said, "I can do something with this guy."
It's so weird as a white guy to look back on that. Like, Kamala, it's like, I always cheered him because he wanted to kill Hogan.
Yeah,
Like, it never occurred to me as a young kid the implications of that
yeah.
until there's a period of time you don't see him on TV.
Hmm.
You start watching old matches, and you're like, "Is this?
Hmm.
Is this?
Yeah. Or the storyline when Slick was trying to domesticate him
I
when
don't remember that.
he turned face, and he had
Wow.
taken Slick had taken him away from Mr. Fuji because he saw Mr. Fuji was mistreating him. So he came over with Slick, and he turned face, and Slick was going to turn him into a man. And they have fans chanting, "You're a man! You're a man!"
God
And
damn
when
it, WWE.
and he would when he would pin the guy, because Kamal didn't, he would do a big splash on the guy's back, and he would forget to roll him over. He want the referee to count, but his shoulders weren't down. So when he would do it with Slick, Slick would get the whole crowd to say, "Roll him over, roll him over." So he rolled him over, and he counted 3. And then when Slick would get in the ring and try to get him to walk, because Kamal was always hunched over, and then Slick gave him a hat, and Slick put on his hat and walked, and he gave Kamal the hat and wanted him to walk, and then after much consternation, he put the hat on, and then he just walked across the ring like James Sugar Bear Harris, and the place went nuts. And then he went right back into quivering Kamala, and so yeah, so that was
Oh.
yeah, so yeah,
No,
that
you can't
happened.
do that anymore.
Nope, couldn't do that, can't do that anymore. But or if you
I'm okay with that.
the I think I shared with you the great outtakes Gene Okerlund did when they were doing the press junkets, and Kamala was late, and you got to hear Kamala in his real voice when Gene said, "Where the f you been? You're supposed to have been here 10 minutes ago," and and something. But yeah, but
Very
eh,
well.
but every person to a man, from Jerry Lawler to Hogan to Andre to Undertaker, nothing but a nice guy. No one had any bad things to say about James Harris. James Harris had plenty of bad things to say about the wrestling business and how he was treated. And despite all the money he made and all the crowds that he performed in front of, probably was not as paid as well as he should. I think one thing. I think he said I made more under Bill Watson than I did in the WWF, even though I was main eventing against Hogan.
Jesus. Well, that's
But
friggin' Hogan in a nutshell for you,
yeah,
brother.
yeah. But but James Harris. We all obviously we remember the Kickstarter campaign that happened about 8 years ago when we found out
Yeah,
he was
I helped.
down on his luck, and as did I when he had lost his legs. And it continued on. Chris Jericho donated $5,000 for his funeral expenses. Because again, Bubba Ray Dudley and Tommy Dreamer had plenty of great things to say about Kamala on their podcast. And I don't think Tommy even met. I think Bubba never even met him, but just with the amount of memory that they have of him, or anyone that's seen him, how could you not want to help a guy who's given so many great memories and just one of the great heels in wrestling history, and beat so many top guys just with absolutely no wrestling at all. I mean, this is a guy who's pinned Jerry Lawler, who's pinned Kerry Von Erich, I saw him pin Billy Jack and Junkyard Dog, body slam Andre the Giant. Not a lot of people can say all that to be a top guy everywhere he appeared with a gimmick where he didn't talk.
I had a follow-up thought, but I forgot what the question was going to be about Kamala. But thank you, Harry, for taking us on a trip back to listen, gimmick aside, was a good man and should be talked about in nothing but a positive way, because I haven't heard anything about him in a negative way either.
No.
So
yeah, it deserved a lot more than he had.
If they put him in the Hall of Fame at this point, is it do you even accept it?
Well, you saw the graphic before Monday Night Raw they put up before it started.
I didn't watch Raw, so no.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, they put up a graphic.
I'm glad they did. Good. I figured they would.
Which is great. If they put him in, it would be something. But I would say, well, okay, well then why wasn't? Then where was it for Bundy?
Yeah.
Where was it for Ivan Koloff? Not putting one over the other, but I just think in terms of that, it's just lip service. Again, because there's no Hall of Fame.
It's a great conversation. We should have it another time.
I agree.
Not people who should be in the Hall of Fame that aren't, and what reasons.
Yeah. Well, we know why, because it's for whoever didn't get along with Vince, because Kamala had the nerve, or even had the forthright to say I felt cheated by this company and things that it did. And now, who's to say that had he gotten his just desert, had he got what was owed, had he got the money he was due, or had he been treated better, his health still would have declined. He still could have very easily have just lost, his legs to diabetes after he was diagnosed with this, after, his career was over, or he had it probably the whole time. I don't think that could have saved, or kind of would have done anything for his health. I think it would have been better for his peace of mind. I don't want to say he died bitter, but I know he wasn't particularly happy with.
I'm sure he died a little bitter.
Yeah, I'm sure, but I hate that anyone have to die like that. But
well, I'm going to die bitter. Many things. There's going to be many things that I don't resolve. Less important than the Kamala bitterness, but still, I want to thank you again for now that I'm paying attention and the Flyers scored again. I was paying attention, but I was just like,
yeah, I know.
Question? What?
I thought of something.
Thank you for. Yeah, it's 2-1 Flyers as of this recording for now. So thank you for taking us the trip. I want to thank Purple Flavor Trash for conversating during our initial discussion in this episode. Craig, where can the people follow you?
They can follow me if they so choose on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter at Craig Ligons, CraigLiggeons.
Follow me on Twitter at DanLo93. Let's go Flyers. VOCNation.com for the podcast. Your smartphone, type in VOC Nation Radio Network, or go to youtube.com/DanLo93 to watch all the episodes coming up or in the past. We'll see you next time.